Baldwin is so great looking, especially with his grays. He's been doing this for a long time. His Western film Rust, starring and produced by Alec Baldwin, is set to shoot in New Mexico early this month. Vikings and Raised by Wolves star Travis Fimmel, Brady Noon, and Francis Fisher has also joined Alec Baldwin on the cast of the film from writer-director Joel Souza about outlaw Harlan Rust, who Alec Baldwin is playing, who breaks his teenage son out of prison after the youngster is convicted of an accidental murder. The pair go on the run and they're chased by the legendary U.S. Marshal Wood Helm and bounty hunter Fenton Preacher Lang. Sousa and Baldwin created this story. Alec Baldwin is producing under his El Dorado Pictures with Matt Del Piano of Calvary Media, Ryan Donald Smith of Thomasville Pictures, Anjul Nigam of Brittany House Pictures, and Ryan Winterstern, and Nathan Klinger of Short Porch Records, or Short Porch Pictures, excuse me. Alan Cheney, Emily Hunter Salveson, and Christopher M.B. Sharp and Jennifer E. Lamb are serving as executive producers on this film. Hunter Salveson and Donald Smith Streamline Global are co-financing Rust, and CAA Media Finance handles the U.S. rights. New Mexico is a popular international filming hub, with its profile having been further raised when Netflix opened its first U.S. production hub in that state. It has several studio facilities, including Albuquerque Studios, and its terrain lends itself to doubling for Western-style locals and films. Walter Hill Western, Dead for a Dollar, starring Willem Dafoe and Christoph Waltz, has just started filming in that state. They just started filming in that state, excuse me. Last autumn, it hosted production on Idris Elba Western, The Harder They Fall, one of the first major productions to return to filming in New Mexico following the COVID shutdown. So it seems that New Mexico is a very, very popular spot for these actors and actresses, and Alec Baldwin's Western Rust is going to be filming there soon. Let me allow him to update you with one of his acting partners, and I will be right back with my commentary.
Does he make a request again?
You type in, yeah. Schwartz report. Okay, we're requesting you again. Are you watching? Okay, should be coming up.
Okay, this should work.
There we go.
There we go.
Fantastic.
All right, good.
All right, hang up.
Did you say that Matt is your tech guy or your Coke dealer? I don't think I could hear you properly. Is he your
I'm both. I'm both, Al.
That's both.
Perhaps
Yeah.
one better than the other, though. Perhaps one more competent than the other.
We got it working.
Okay, anyway, we're live. We're live now.
Well, it's wonderful. So this is your thing. However, I've got, because we're also going to run excerpts of it on my show. I will, after you get done introducing the conversation, I'll ask you a few things, and then it can turn into a more organic, two-way.
You want to ask me a few things?
Yeah, and like at the start, it's just to establish that it's a conversation more than a one-way interview. See what I'm saying?
I was hoping for a one-way interview, actually, but okay. Anyway, we're rolling. We're hot. We're going.
Well, here we go.
I'm Alec Baldwin. I'm a game show host. I'm a podcast host. I'm a father of 7 children. I'm out of my mind. And I'm here with the one and the only Bob Garfield to talk about his new show, Bully Pulpit, to talk about his career in journalism, his long and wonderful career as a journalist, and talk about the fate of journalism. We might talk about that for like 60 seconds because what's the point? But first of all, Bob, you wanted to do something as well for your show. What did you want to ask me?
Well, I'm going to take the highlights of this conversation, if there are any, and turn it into the next episode of Bully Pulpit, which will drop Friday.
That's good of you. Yeah. Okay. All right. So should I just start away? Can I have that in here?
I'm going to put us on Do Not Disturb so my mom doesn't.
You deal coke out of your mother's house? He cut out.
We have a highlight.
There we go. He deals coke at your mother's house. That's great. Anyway. So I'm going to back up a little bit because I'm up right on top of myself here with this camera. And tell me, you left public radio. You were on public radio for quite a while. On the Media with Brooke Gladstone. Wonderful show, a show that I loved. A show that I thought was some of the best journalism on the air. I mean, I think I was never disappointed in an episode of that show. And I thought she did good work, but of course I'm obviously a fan of yours, a huge fan of yours. But when you left there, talk about the genesis of Bully Pulpit. How did that come together?
Well, first of all, I left there the way an artillery shell leaves a cannon. It had nothing to do with me. Right. I was fired, and we can get into that a little bit.
We're going to get into that.
The lawyers prevent me from being, too candid. But we can talk about that. Can we just observe one thing? Since this conversation is taking place the day after the Facebook shutdown and the Instagram shutdown, and 2 days after this blockbuster interview on 60 Minutes with the whistleblower, we are on Instagram, which we now well understand, triggers self-loathing in kids, right? And because, Mark Zuckerberg, if we're talking like evil, he makes Vladimir Putin look like Mr. Rogers. So I guess what I'm saying is, kids, please love yourself, and we love you too. So I would say that's where I want to start. I apologize for talking to you, Alec, on this particular platform because evil.
I'm joking.
I know. It was poignant. I understand.
It's very moving. Well, look.
If that were in a movie, that little episode, in 12 minutes, you would die of consumption.
Well, someone wrote Trump 2024, so I immediately started convulsing. Well, listen, I am someone who Instagram is my primary, if not sole, social media source. I have a Twitter account, which I keep open. I shut it down for a while, and I keep that open just as a placeholder for my name, because if you shut down for a year and then they suspend the account permanently, you lose your name to other people, which is, I have enough problems on social media, or I used to. And so the Twitter account, I will retweet certain things, and as I've said many times before, it's an aggregator for me. There's people I follow, not many, but there's a few I follow, Kurt Anderson and people like that, who are posting articles. I've got maybe a dozen people who I really, really follow, but I'm not on Twitter. I'm on Twitter almost never, comparatively speaking. Facebook, I have a Facebook page for myself, for my foundation. My wife and I have a charitable foundation. We have a Facebook page for that, and we avail ourselves of that, or we manipulate that from time to time. But Instagram is it for me, and I guess Instagram is owned by Facebook, correct? That's what we've.
It is, and it's obviously it's a fantastic utility, but it is both utopian and dystopian, and the dystopian side is really dystopian. I mean that because Mark Zuckerberg and company know exactly what the deleterious effects are the social dynamic on these platforms, and they will not do anything to remediate them because it screws up their business model. So they're constantly apologizing and explaining and being on the defensive, but they never actually fix what's broke. So nonetheless, like I said, really good utility, and I'm delighted, freaking delighted to be talking to you on this or anywhere, because I'm always delighted talking to you.
Well, thank you. Now, a guy who shall remain nameless contacted me quite a while ago, probably last year in the heart of the first waves of the COVID, probably more than a year ago, to talk about a more user-friendly and a platform like this with more integrity. Everybody have to register. You have to give all your real information. You have to give a photograph. You'd have to be completely transparent. It's you as you, being you, doing you, posting as you. And he said he thinks that that's going to take a lot of the. And the question, of course, is how many people really want that? Are there a modest number of people who want full transparency and something that's kinder, a kinder social media where people can exchange and because you really are out there with your name and information, you have a profile page with your information, do people, is there a significant volume? This is the question maybe we don't want answered. Is there a substantial volume of people who want that kinder form of a Facebook or what have you? Or do most people really kind of like the way it is, where you can hide and you can conceal yourself and say just hateful things?
Well, it's a playground for the id, right? And it empowers you to have power, even if it's only the power to intimidate or to terrorize or to badmouth. And, it taps into something that unfortunately is all too human. And when these people understood that, they buried it and denied in public, but talk about it in their memos amongst themselves. And that's what this whistleblower revelation was all about. Can I say one other thing, Alec? This is so weird. I'm sitting here looking at your face because Instagram, right? So last night I was watching the Jerry Lewis documentary, which popped up on Amazon Prime, and there you were. A couple of weeks ago, I was watching the John DeLorean docudrama, and there you were, not only as DeLorean, but as yourself commenting on the DeLorean saga. I just watched you in the miniseries, I think on Peacock, Dr. Death, which is a really, really, really perverse story. And I watch you every week on the Match Game. Well, okay, that's actually not true. I don't watch you on the Match Game. But Alec, I'm afraid to open the fucking fridge because I think you're going to be in there like drinking my orange juice from the carton.
There I am on the missing. I'm missing on the carton.
I don't understand. You've got between like 6 and 47 kids. How do you have the time to be everywhere all at once? I don't understand this.
Wish that were true, but the Peacock we started Dr. Death in March of last year. They shut down. They came back and were rebooted and ready to go with all their protocols by mid-October. We shot from mid-October to the end of I think the middle or end of February. And, because we had the holidays. So it was like almost 5-month shoot to do 8 episodes because of all the shutdowns and protocols and so forth. It was a group of people. What you see very often in the business now is how hard people are working to keep everything going. They don't want to be the one that shuts down the production. They don't want to be the one that brings the COVID on the set. They're working really, really hard. Like my kids' school. When you go to my kids' school and we drop them off at school, everyone's working really hard, masking, gloves, spraying things down, distancing, and everybody on the staff is vaccinated. Everybody on the faculty is vaccinated. And I would imagine most of the parents are vaccinated as well. And we're assiduous about all of this because the kids can't be vaccinated yet. So we're always trying to protect unvaccinated children. So the job I did with Peacock, and then and my part was rather small. I mean, the real star of it was Joshua Jackson, played the eponymous character, if you will. But everybody worked really hard. I'm going to do a film.
Very well. He does sociopath very, very well, that guy.
Wonderful performance. And so everybody worked really hard to protect everything COVID-wise. I'm leaving to go to New Mexico in a little while to go shoot a film very quickly. And that's same thing, everyone just busting their back, keep everything safe for everybody. So
A Western, by the way.
yes, I'm going to do a Western, yeah.
Is this your first Western?
Well,
I mean, I remember once you with doing something with guns and a movie with your ex-wife, and it seemed to take place in the Southwest, but I don't remember exactly.
I actually did. The producer was a dear friend of mine. I love this guy. And his name was Stockton Briggle, the great Stockton Briggle. Who's
Of course.
And Stockton Briggle presents. And we did for CBS TV back in the 80s, we did a remake of The Alamo with James Arness and Brian Keith. And the Alamo Historical Society picketed the sets because they said that the two other men were old enough to play the fathers of their characters. They were both long in the tooth for their roles. So I did a Western once. I did The Alamo for CBS, and it was memorable, but not for the right reasons.
I'm sorry. What was the name of the producer?
Stockton Briggle.
Right, of course, the Stockton Briggle. I once did a piece about that involved the director of the McLean Symphony Orchestra, whose name, as you know, is Dingwall Fleary, and that was a career highlight.
Well, I'm always looking for names to stay in hotels under, and my favorite, one of my favorites was I was told by other people. I think I substantiated this, that the great Mozart biographer who wrote the great books on Mozart, his name was Cuthbert Girdlestone. You can look at stayed in hotel. Cuthbert.
Yeah, you know what? His name was actually it was Shecky Cuddle Stein, and you know he changed it at Ellis Island.
Real name was Phil Cohen. Yeah.
But, yeah. So just one more postscript. The other night, I was watching this Jake Gyllenhaal movie. I think it was called The Guilty. He plays a 9/11 operator, and I watched the movie, and the credits are rolling, and then I see assistant editor Alec Baldwin. And I'm like, nuh-uh. I mean, is this a side hustle? A hedge? You know, in case the famous actor thing doesn't work out? Yeah.
Well, I mean, I know I haven't been doing any editing, but that's actually a good idea. I might look into that. I need all the help I can get financially at this point. But
well, also Home Depot is hiring.
But I want to ask you,
yeah.
Bully Pulpit, how did that come about?
Well, it came about because I got fired, and I got fired under the allegation that I had violated the WNYC's anti-bullying policies. Not that I was a bully per se, not that nicety ever came through. As far as the world is concerned, I'm a bully, and I'm, you know, to some degree canceled, but I'm certainly fired, and it was catastrophic in many, many ways, financially, reputationally. I'm fighting it, and I probably will prevail, although there's no such thing as a slam dunk in this kind of law. But in the meantime, I still want to journalize. So a friend of mine who was my co-host and on a podcast that Slate did called Lexicon Valley, about language. It was a wonderful podcast, which we left. He went and did one thing about Supreme Court decisions. I went to do another thing about MacArthur Genius laureates. But and then it was handed over to a Columbia professor, a linguistics professor named John McWhorter. Anyway, Mike Volo, his name is, came to me and said, "Look, I'm starting this company with my friend Matt Schwartz from NPR, and it's called Booksmart Studios, and we would like you to consider, doing your thing for us." And I said, yes, I would consider, yes. And this is the best part about getting my ass fired and being humiliated and everything else that comes with my fate, because now I can do exactly what I want, the same kind of social and political media criticism that I wanted to do. You know, I don't want to mischaracterize this, but without without having to deal with, let's say, the internal politics of an organization, without having any kind of sort of received ideology that has to be at the bottom of it. I'm free to be me, asking the kind of questions and making the kind of observations that I want to make. And that has been very liberating. I wish I hadn't been fired, but I could not be more delighted to be doing this particular show because it's just been a fantastic experience, and very well received among the 11 people who listened to it.
I had a show for quite a while. I was several years at NYC, and when the show ended, when I left NYC to go to iHeart and go from public radio to commercial radio, it was difficult because I was sad to, they could always find me. It's not like you're walking out of a house per se, but I was sad to leave behind, figuratively, the public radio audience. I like the public radio audience, and I was always getting people telling me people would tell me how much they liked my podcast in New York more than anything else I was working on. It was kind of funny. And but NYC was a place where I'm a fan of public radio, but not all public radio stations are created equally. And NYC, which has a huge nut, they are, in the COVID era, I would imagine, obsessed with raising money. New York Public Radio owns NYC and QXR, and I'm a huge supporter of QXR. But NYC, of course, got into the kind of firing jag. Lopate had to go, and Jonathan Schwartz had to go, and Hockenberry, and when I left, it was, I was told, I was given a mandatory set of questions that I had to ask Woody Allen. And I said to them, I said, now Woody Allen told me in my conversation with him, we had one conversation, and I said, they're coming after me to ask these asked and answered questions. And I just find asking those questions again, not that there's anything wrong with it, but it doesn't mean a good show. He's already been over this 1,000 times. And they said, well, if you don't ask these questions, we're not going to air the show. I mean, I found that shocking. This is public radio. They said, if you don't ask the questions, the guy, whatever his name was, what was that guy who was in charge of content there?
I see no need to bandy about names, Alec. Let's just
let's
just leave him anonymous.
No, I'd love to put his name right up on the screen, but he was the one that said, yeah, if you don't, and passed it on to my producer, if you don't ask these questions, we're not going to air the show. So in my mind, that was it. I was going to quit. I was out of there. And so I said to Woody, they're demanding that I ask these questions. I apologize. This isn't at all what I had in mind. He said, listen, he said, don't worry about it. I mean, he was as cool, and he was as cooperative, and he was as low key as can be. He said, you don't think I've been asked these things 1,000 times? He said, there's nothing here I can't handle. You're not going to ask me anything I haven't been asked before. And I know exactly how to and I appreciate you. I said, let's cancel. I said to Woody, let's cancel. I said, He said, no, because then that looks like we're hiding something. He said, don't worry about it. So we do the show. He was great. I mean, he was unbelievable. He was great. And then we finished, and I called my lawyer, and I said, I'm out of here. Because we were coming to the tail end, the very tail of my contract then. And we were in the kind of, with NYC, you're always in conversations with them where you're talking like through a soup can. It's like a string. You know what I mean? It's like, it's so, their business affairs people are among the worst I've ever dealt with in my lifetime. And so this was this glacial conversation about whether I was coming back. My one show was ending. We needed to get into the studio and start doing shows for the next season. They didn't care. So I just kind of took a deep breath and I said, you know something? I mean, just about anywhere has got to be better than here. I mean, a public just demand that I ask these questions. So I left and I went to iHeart. And I wanted to take my catalog with me. They demanded that I paid them 100 cents on the dollar. I had to pay them all their total costs for all my episodes. They wanted it all. They wanted all that money. They didn't want to negotiate with me, or they take some of the loss. They were like, no, if you want, we're going to run your shows on our RSS. We're going to run it on our thing until you buy it from us. So I went and got the money, and I bought the whole fucking thing from them to get it away from them. And do I like being on commercial radio? There's benefits to it, and there's things. Now you're on commercial radio now as well.
I, I wish there were more commerce. You know, it's an interesting model. We are on a Substack, which is a platform for independent creators of content who, you know, are not in the employee of, you know, media companies to fend for themselves, you know, put their content out there and be paid by subscriptions by their followers. And Bully Pulpit is in effect a Substack talent. And at the moment we are 3 shows. There's Bully Pulpit, there is Lexicon Valley, which Mike and I started and McWhorter now does for us.
And that's
And,
yeah.
and then there's Banished by an academic, a professor named Amna Khalid, which looks at, you know, what loosely is called cancel culture and looks at its implications for the society and so forth. And all 3 shows are fan-fucking-tastic.
What was the
and
third?
Yes.
What was the third one?
It's called Banished.
That's the cancel culture one. Oh, great. Okay.
Yeah. And, you know, it's not reactionary. It's not like, you know, look at these libs. No, it's looking at what's happening to free speech, academic freedom, free expression, under the guise of social justice, but which, you know, you have to ask the question, is it just plain anti-democratic? And so she comes up with, unfortunately, there's so many examples of horror stories from mostly universities, but not only, around the country. And she really asks smart questions and, you know, listens carefully to the answers. And it's something. I mean, you're when you listen to an episode, when you're done, your jaw aches because of the tension of this moment in our society. And yes, of course, in answer to your question, yes, you can subscribe to all of them for free at Booksmart Studios, booksmartstudios.org. And if you ask me later, I'll also plug the shows.
Now, obviously, we talked about off mic the other day. We talked about how, and with all these shows, I'm at a commercial station and we have a budget, and you know, one of the constant laments that we have is about music, how we have to pay. When I was at public radio, we were given a not-for-profit rate to play music with my musical guests, of which there have been many. I'd say at least a third, if not 40%, or it could be 50, but let's say 40%. In my archive of my guests are musicians, and from every corner you could imagine, from Tony, from Danny Bennett to Joe Jackson. We tried to get Tony, but we got his son Danny instead to talk about his career. I mean, Roger Daltrey, Tom York, the list goes on. Carly Simon, with so many people. And then we go to them and we say, can we play Daryl Hall? Can we play some of your music? Now, some of them control those rights and some don't. And where we were in public radio, we were given one rate. Now I'm in commercial radio, the rate is much higher. So we're going to them and saying where I want to wallpaper my podcast with a couple of nice clips. Paavo Järvi and his work with the NHK Symphony Orchestra in Tokyo. Beautiful cuts we had from that interview. And it costs money. Now I'm wondering for you, I'm assuming there's things you just can't do that you used to be able to do when you were on the media, correct? Because of the cost?
Well, I'm not sure. I may be speaking out of turn here, but it seemed to me that at On the Media, because we were a broadcast station and we were covered under the what's it called? There's a master agreement between broadcast stations and the record industry that gives you kind of very liberal fair use requirements. You pay one flat fee and you can use essentially anything recorded. If it is if it's broadcast. But once you start using digital platforms, that does not apply. The master agreement doesn't apply. So On the Media was always in a bind because we had our broadcast show where we could use any media music or media we wanted. But on the podcast version of it, which was also very big, there was the same music and not protected by the same agreement. And I think we just kind of squinched and used it and waited. You know, it's better to ask for forgiveness than for permission. And I think nobody ever issued a takedown order or anything like that. And we are proceeding. We had our own music composed for a theme and stuff like that, which we own. So that's not a problem. But if I use a clip of someone, I make sure it's brief, and I use it under the fair use legal concepts, and it's always very short, and I'm hoping that nobody objects. So my fingers are crossed, but my heart is pure.
Now, what are the benefits of the show you're doing now as compared to where you were before?
Well, I get to be me. I don't have to worry about other people's ideology, about their red zones. I don't have to worry about their aesthetic. I mean, collaboration is great, and I worked with extremely, extremely, extremely talented producers, but they weren't me. And there were times when I was stymied in my wishes for a particular piece, a subject matter, or often subject matter, or an approach, a line in a piece, or something like that. And now I am free to either soar or fuck up all by myself. Mike and Matt, the founders of the booksmartstudios.org, are very, very scrupulous about looking at my stuff and making suggestions, but they're not the boss of me in that sense. And so I'm free to be me, which is, if you call that freedom.
Now, you had on one of the episodes your friend who you've known for many years, who did the 9/11 museum documentary, correct?
Yeah, Steve Rosenbaum.
Your friend's name was what again?
Steve Rosenbaum.
Steve Rosenbaum, he was the director or the producer or both?
Both.
And Michael Schulman, I remember that clearly. He was the kind of protagonist of the piece. And I remember Rosenbaum, that I liked the film a lot, and I just couldn't get enough of Schulman. I wanted to see more of Schulman.
Schulin.
Oh, Schulin. Yeah, Michael Schulin.
Yeah.
Sorry. So, you know Rosenbaum from where?
I've known him for 600 or 700 years. He once called me. I was believe it or not, this is going to sound ridiculous, but before I got into the media criticism racket, I was an advertising critic. I was a, believe it or not, world famous advertising critic, because I worked for Advertising Age, which was the global publication for media and marketing industry. And I passed judgment on new commercials and campaigns and print ads and so forth. And as such was, it's crazy. You know what it's like to walk down the street in Cannes during the movie festival in May, and people turning their heads and going, well, that's what would happen to me when I walked down the Quizette in Cannes in June for the advertising festival.
I thought you were going to say that was. I thought you were going to say that was what it was like when you walked down Madison Avenue in the 70s and 80s. That was your Quizette. No.
As you well know, Alec, as a native New Yorker, nobody makes eye contact with you on Madison Avenue. So it's easy to be anonymous walking down the North to South Street. Anyway, so he called me once and to book me for a speaking gig, and we became friends.
Now, you were a person who was immersed in the world of advertising. I used to do voiceovers in the early days with Young and Rubicam, and of course, my favorite piece of Madison Avenue trivia, my favorite anecdote was when someone said that BBD&O, Batten, Barton, Durston, and Osborne was the sound made by what? What was the joke?
A trunk falling down the stairs, and it was Fred Allen said it on his radio show back in 1644.
The sound of it falling down a flight of stairs. Batten, Barton,
Durston, and Osborne. Yeah.
So, what's your media diet? I mean, I talked to a couple people. All of them say the same thing, and I don't fault them for that. their go-to in the morning is the New York Times online. They're all reading the Times first and foremost. What's your media diet every day? What are you committed to listening to, reading every day?
Well, as we've discussed, the major thing I consume, it turns out, is Alec Baldwin movies,
Well,
which is getting to be a problem. I read the New York Times. That's my first go, and then because I'm always looking for story ideas, the other thing I read is everything. Now, one of the things I really miss about on the media is the producers in the aggregate had far more scope in their media diets than I did, and they would bring stuff that I otherwise would not have, found. And sometimes it was from Atlantic or the New Republic or the Nation or some even less brand name publications, brand famous publications, but far greater than I personally consumed. And now, because I have constantly to be on the lookout for ideas for pieces and commentaries and essays, I just obsessively scroll everything. So the answer to your question changes hour by hour, but I'm just going to go with everything.
Now, so again, the podcast is called Bully Pulpit. It can be found at booksmartstudios.com.
Nope. No. Booksmartstudios.org. You can subscribe for free. You can pay $7 a month and get bonus content from Amna and John and from me. I write a weekly text column, which might be even funner for me than the broadcast piece, the audio pieces, because in my life I've written 3,000 or 4,000 columns. That's really how I got started in this business. What we do, or at least what I do, is observe. I observe my ass off, and I try to look at what is happening in our society and ask questions that, for whatever reason, some are uncomfortable about asking. And I may sometimes seem like polemical, but the key is I make an argument. I don't just say things as if they were received truth. I make an argument, and the arguments are pretty strong. And also, it's often kind of funny. Have you heard any of the pieces yet?
Yes. I listened to the one about the tortillas. I listened to the one about what's his name? Shulin. I listened to the one about the documentary. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, in one word, in two words, and one of them being transcendent. How would you characterize Bully Pulpit from booksmartstudios.org?
Almost transcendent.
What's weird, Alec, is this is going to be all on Bully Pulpit.
Yeah.
So essentially, it's going to be an episode advertising Bully Pulpit. So let me ask you this: what's the name of the Western? Is it called Rust?
Rust. It's called Rust, and I play the central character. But to get back to your media diet, so it's the Times. No TV for you. You're not watching any TV news at all. That's hopeless to you.
What? Well, cable news is not news. It's just highly conflicted people arguing about the news, right? And Fox News obviously is not news because it's just political propaganda and opposition research, and it is it's a cancer on the society. And the local news is people standing in front of police tape talking live from something that happened yesterday. So that's utterly useless. And unfortunately, local news reporting it's all but disappeared. We are awash in national political reporting, but the collapse of the media industry has decimated the journalism business everywhere in this country. In some places, there are vast deserts where there is no local news available. And you know who's behind that too? You know who is at the heart of that collapse? Well, the digital revolution in the first instance, because it bollocksed up the advertising model and it created an endless glut of content and not enough advertising to support it. But then Facebook and Google snapped up everything. They own the advertising economy, and everybody else has to fight for scraps. So on top of all of the other evils of Mark Zuckerberg that we began with, they have more than any other institution, including the Trump administration, eviscerated the news business here and around the world. And from this, I believe we shall never recover.
You don't see any hope?
No, I mean, I'm in the despair industry, but there's not a lot I see. Let's just say the planet does not burn into a cinder, about which I'm also increasingly skeptical. I don't see the problems, the intractable problems in the news business doing anything but getting worse and worse and worse.
The show is called Bully Pulpit. The site is booksmartstudios.org. How many, you post how regularly? The show comes out how often?
It's a weekly show that comes out on Fridays, the audio show, which is sometimes essays, sometimes pieces, sometimes interviews, sometimes conversations that are not exactly formal interviews. And the text column comes out on Mondays.
Great. Well, good luck with that. I'm going to be listening. I'm going to dial into that podcast. I'm especially interested in both the other podcasts. What's it called? Banished, and what's the other one? Lexicon Valley?
Lexicon Valley. They both are transcendent. And also, Alec, I should say I'll be at the Valley Forge Music Fair June 7th, 8th, and 9th. And I'll be doing some summer stock in Meridian, Mississippi. I'm doing the Music Man. It's long been a dream of mine. I will be playing the Shirley Jones character.
I'm so sorry to miss that. Let's record that. Anyway, my very best to you.
Thank you. Likewise.
You can record this, right? And say, how do we hit the save thing? What do we do? When we end it? Okay, we're gonna say goodbye, and we're gonna record this and post it on my IG. I think we can. And I look forward to Bully Pulpit, Lexicon Valley, and Banished on booksmartstudios.org.
Thanks, man. It's always a pleasure.
My pleasure. We'll talk to you down the road, buddy. Thank you. Bye.
All right, take care.
And so what do we do?
And now.
Well, isn't that awesome? So recently, Alec Baldwin's daughter, Ireland Baldwin, showed off some bikini photos on Instagram. And I'm not going to share them here for the sake of editing. I just don't have that type of time tonight. But this 25-year-old model was wearing her bathing suit that revealed her tattoos, and she captioned one of the photos with a message of body positivity. She said, "Embracing my cellulite, stretch marks, curve, eczema, ingrowns, pale skin, and grown out roots, my hairy legs, and all the other fun things that make me a human. Fall colors are coming in hot," she captioned her other photos. Now, his daughter is no stranger to showing off her body on the internet. She previously told Alec Baldwin he's just going to have to get over it. The model addressed the issue once during an interview with US Weekly after Alec Baldwin commented under one of her pictures. She said, "I like being naked. The slut shaming and all of the SHIT that I get all the time from posting a photo, I don't even look at those comments anymore. People are wasting their time. Honestly, I'm going to continue to be naked, and it's fun, and everyone should be, honestly. The photos I get yelled at by my dad are the ones where I'm drunk and eating at night at 2 p.m. at the IHOP," she explained. "I posted this video like drinking maple syrup, and he was like, 'You have to take that down. No one's going to take you seriously.' And I'm like, old man, get over it." Oh my goodness. That is what she had to say about Alec Baldwin not agreeing with some of her posts on Instagram. I think that sounds like a really fun father-daughter relationship and very, very normal, which apparently his daughter is trying to grasp onto her normalcy. And there's nothing wrong with that when you're Alec Baldwin's daughter and have grown up in a life of luxury and spotlight. All right, until next time.